and I don't even care if anyone calls me a Sally, because I'm a snail and I never gonna fail. And you know what? You're gonna have to bail me out of jail.
This video existed for years, getting almost no attention, but now it's being watched through a completely different lens. Because nearly a decade after it was published, Nick Reiner murdered his parents, the famous filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife, photographer turned political activist Michelle Reiner. So when you watch this video back and consider how random and nonsensical it feels, you can't help but wonder, what did he think he was making?
They know that David will go on stage, who has his ways about him, but you know, they really want to know what's inside. I do it like ISIS. I usually only do one at a time, because I like fucking spat on his windshield.
But this isn't just about gawking at this weird YouTube video. Although trust me, this video is bizarre.
Why do you like Snapple so much?
Mainly because when I'm done drinking it, I can go in my room and squirt lotion in it and then use it to stick my penis in.
Instead, this is a story about a person who, by most reporting, had been struggling for a very long time, and a family that had desperately tried to hold that struggle together. So I'm not going to stand here and pretend that this one upload explains everything that happened on December 14th, 2025, because it doesn't. But it does show us something important. This wasn't a guy just having a random off day. This is what it looks like when someone's been spiraling for years, and the people around them are trying to catch them without getting pulled down too. This is the story of Nick Reiner. Now, to understand how we got here, we have to rewind way before this cinematic masterpiece even existed. Because Nick Reiner didn't just appear out of nowhere as the headline. He grew up inside one of the most recognizable Hollywood families on earth, the Reiners. His father, Rob, was a massive filmmaker, a guy whose name is basically stitched into the fabric of American pop culture, having co-founded Castle Rock Entertainment, a company that helped bring TV giants like Seinfeld to life, and directing classics like The Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally. And his mother, Michelle, was not only a creative herself, but she was also deeply involved in political activism too. So from the outside looking in, it reads like the safest possible environment for a child to grow up in. Money, connections, a big involved family, including his older brother Jake and younger sister Romy. Nick lived the kind of life where the ground should have felt solid beneath his feet. But what some people might forget is that a famous last name doesn't erase problems. It just makes the contrast harsher when things start going wrong. Because inside a family that's public, there's always this invisible pressure to be normal, to be okay, to not embarrass anybody, to not be looked at as the problem. And when you're struggling, that pressure can turn your whole life into one big performance. And that's why this video hits so weirdly now, because it feels like somebody trying to be a character, because being themselves might have been even harder to sit with. For a while, Nick did try to find his lanes. I mean, he wasn't just Rob Reiner's son, he had creative interests of his own. He was around film, around storytelling, around people who built narratives for a living. But beneath the Hollywood gloss, reports point to a struggle that started early, because by his teens, the Hollywood kid with everything angle was replaced by something darker and much more chaotic. A vicious cycle of addiction, relapse, rehab, and repeat. You see, from what's been reported, Nick's substance issues started as early as 15 years old. And not in a wild rich kid way, in a all-encompassing, life-consuming kind of way, because he was cycling in and out of treatment facilities constantly. I mean, one report even said he had been in and out of rehab 18 times by the age of 22. 18. That's not just messing up. That's a life that keeps tipping over and people around him repeatedly trying to stand it back up. And it wasn't just rehab either, because Nick even experienced bouts of homelessness as a teenager too, which is hard to even imagine when your dad is Rob Reiner. But hey, addiction doesn't care what your last name is, doesn't care what house you grew up in, and it definitely doesn't care how much you should be okay. It just keeps taking. And when someone is trapped in that cycle, the family gets trapped too. Because every time they help, they're hoping this is the time it finally sticks. So every time it doesn't, the stakes get even higher. And that's why this random upload feels especially eerie in hindsight. Not because it's spooky, but because it has that tired, scattered energy of someone who's been quietly living in chaos for far too long. Now, somewhere in the middle of all this, Nick did something pretty interesting. He tried to turn his struggle into a story. See, he co-wrote a movie called Being Charlie, a film about addiction, rehab, recovery, and it was directed by none other than his father. And I know it probably sounds like a Hollywood vanity thing, but it's actually a pretty big deal because it shows two things at once. One, Nick wasn't completely removed from reality. He could look at what he'd lived through and tried to shape it into something productive. And two, his family was not ignoring it. They were involved. They were trying. It's the kind of thing families do when they're desperate for a win. You know, if this is your life, can we at least build something honest out of it? Can we make a path out of the wreckage? And for a while, it seemed like he was moving towards stability. There were even reports that he had gotten clean around that period. So while things weren't perfect or happily ever after, they were at least functioning. And that matters, because it makes everything that came later feel even more brutal. Because when you watch this video, it doesn't feel like someone building a life, it feels like someone trying to fake a life. Now at the time, the video could have just been chalked up to Nick being a little bit out there, but in more recent reporting, there's another layer that shows up. The fact that not only had Nick been diagnosed with schizophrenia years earlier and was being treated with medication, but that in the weeks leading up to his parents' murders, his medication had been adjusted. And that's a very important detail. Not because it explains anything, but because it tells you that his situation was not static. Something was actively being managed. And then comes the detail that's been talked about the most. The holiday party at Conan O'Brien's, just the night before. Rob, Michelle, and Nick were all there, and by multiple accounts from people at the party, Rob and Nick got into a huge fight, with Nick's behavior becoming unsettling enough that it actually stood out to guests. And when you place that next to everything that came before it, from years of instability, addiction, treatment, a weird YouTube video, and now a serious mental health diagnosis, it starts to feel like the walls were closing in. Until eventually, December 14th, 2025. A massage therapist showed up at Rob and Michelle's Brentwood home, but can't reach them. So their daughter Romy is contacted, and she shows up at the house to go and check on them. But what she finds instead is something no child should ever endure: the bodies of her mother and father dead. Later that same day, police locate Nick near USC and take him into custody. And in the days that followed, the district attorney formally charged Nick with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's held without bail, and while in custody, he's placed on suicide watch in solitary confinement, being monitored frequently as he wears a suicide prevention smock. His first court appearance happens days later, and his arraignment is scheduled for January 7th, 2026. So why does this bizarre upload matter at all? Because it's not the headline moment, it's the in-between. It's a glimpse of someone trying to act normal, trying to act funny, trying to seem in control, and not quite pulling it off.
I feel like I'm like 100 different people right
Do you
now.
feel
I got like 100 personality disorder. Sometimes I just come out to gather my my sick thoughts.
When you place it next to the timeline, the addiction, the rehab cycles, a brief stretch of stability, and serious mental health treatments, this video stops feeling like random internet weirdness. It starts feeling like a snapshot from the middle of a lifelong struggle. So if you take anything from Nick's story, it's the fact that a real human crisis can run for years, but the world only really stops to pay attention the moment it's too late. And if you want more videos on bizarre people, shows, and real events, then subscribe to the channel and check out this video next.